Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, everybody, and a wonderful Sunday, June 3rd, 2018, 4 o'clock Pacific Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, all time zones in between and around the world. Welcome to our another radio program. We have our program about Spiritism, a certain aspect about Spiritism on Kardec Radio every Sunday night at this time. So please put this on your calendar. Ask questions in the discussion. This is for live stream on Kardec Radio Facebook. Ask me any question you like. I can always go off topic if I need to be. So again, this is Kardec face page, Kardec Radio. This is the whole aim of this is talking about Spiritism codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s. This is the third revelation. The first revelation is from Moses, the second from Jesus, the governor, the leader of our planet and other planets. And now Allan Kardec is the codifier. He did not bring it to us. The Spirit of Truth, as promised in the New Testament, brought us the third revelation, which was codified by Allan Kardec. He codified that into this book, the Spirit's book. You can go to my website. It's right here is nwspiritism.com. Click on his picture and it will take you to the EDI CEI bookstore and you can order his book there or amazon.com. Or if you'd like to, look up the Spirit's book in, either Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing, and put in PDF, and you can find Spirit's books on PDF. It won't cost you anything. You can find all of his books. There's La Souza. Hello. Thank you for joining. You can find all his books on PDF. Believe me, it was a life-changing for me. It finally enabled me to understand why I'm on Earth, what my purpose is, why what happens to people, why bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. And it just explains everything we need to do. And it's this doctrine, the doctrine of Spiritism, was given to us because we were ready for it. Now, tonight we're talking more about an exciting topic, and that is how the spirit world guides humans on Earth. Now, this is in the first section of my book, Book 3 of Spiritism, How We Are Guided by Spirits. And this is a collection of communications to the Reverend G. Vale Owen in the early 1900s by many spirits. And it all talked about different levels of heaven. And as I talk about different levels of heaven, they just use a numbering system, which can be different from other people. They just use that for the Reverend G. Vale Owen as a way to be consistent among other different spirits communicating to him. Very exciting. The revelations that was given to the Reverend G. Vale Owen were just amazing. And if people here who have been spiritists for a long time and have read the spiritist literature by, not only Allan Kardec, Leon Denis, Divaldo Franco, Chico Xavier, it has exposed a lot all about heaven, the process, the spirit process, how we are on Earth. But the books by Reverend G. Vale Owen it complements these, and it talks about more of the processes and the different levels of heaven and what goes on. And it's just it's a whole nother level of learning. So it's just extremely interesting. But tonight we are going to talk about guiding humans on Earth. Now, excuse me, when I think, and after you've read the Spiritist books, and believe me, you'll be amazed. You read his book, Spirit's book, start with that. You can also go to my blog, nwspiritism.com. I have books that I have written on Spiritism, which I think is I collect many information from not only Reverend G. Vale Owen, all the other people I talked about, Francisco Chico Xavier, and I try to talk about reincarnation. I talk about your destiny. I talk about how the problems you have here on Earth are all caused by something that happened in the past life. Many different things. I talk about my own 7 tenets of Spiritism, how they impact your daily life. I talk about my own journey of how I found Spiritism and what it means to me and how I see signs and signals every day. So Spiritism opens up a whole new world. But let's get back to the subject we're talking about tonight. Because I wanted to talk about this first, because when I think of the love that is showered down to us by spirits from heaven, I am astounded. Now, I believe we're all well acquainted with love from our own family, right? And even within our extended family. But beyond that, the concept weakens and often turns into contempt and an excuse to take advantage of anyone outside your circle of love and caring. And this is how I was when I was younger, right? Before I discovered Spiritism, I fashioned uh, my love really to those immediately around me, and everyone else was, I just kept at a distance, and I wasn't, hopefully not mean. I'm sure sometimes I was, but I just, just thought of them as objects. And what I've learned is it is this tribal human instinct that we must learn to discard on our upward path. Spirits have told us many, many times in many manners that we should extend brotherly love to all humans. And this is a difficult concept made harder by our culture of competition for a limited amount of material goods or financial rewards. To be truly selfless and fraternal is an arduous trek. And we are guided to not only remove our selfishness, but other base character flaws. And while Spiritism prefers to use the word wrongs for past harmful behavior, it may be safe to list the 7 deadly sins as blemishes that we should strive to remove from our being: pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. And I've done all of those, right? Like most of us have. And the holes that would appear in our personality from removing these unwanted characteristics should be filled with the 7 heavenly virtues: prudence, justice, temperance, courage, faith, hope, and charity. In fact, I read this marvelous book. I think it was called Gratitude by Vale Franco. He was the medium, Joanna De Angelis, and she was talking about individualization and how to make yourself a spiritual individual. And she talked that we should focus on love, goodness, compassion, faith in the future, because our future is determined by our trials on earth. Our future is determined by the spirit world giving us the lessons. And lastly, gratitude. And I thought that was really interesting. 5 factors that, that we should think about every day. So our spirit benefactors certainly don't expect angelic behavior, right? In fact, making mistakes and learning from them is very important. I had the opportunity to learn from a man named Sergio, who had a near-death experience in which he reviewed his life with a small team of his spirit mentors. And as the life review unfolded, he found disturbing aspects to his behavior. So remember, he had an NDE, and he was in this group and looking at his life as it had passed by at that particular point. And as he was looking at his life, he said, "Oh, no," and he continued to try to interrupt and say, "No, can you stop? I want to analyze this episode." And his spirit guides would invariably reply that it was unimportant. And finally, he realized that his life was as important as it was unimportant. Now, it's at first, this sounds flippant, right? But when one looks at an internal existence with multiple lives, one sees that in whatever we lived through, it was all part of a learning experience. That even if we failed during one episode, what we learned stayed with us to enable us to be successful in the next trial, in the next life. An example: let's say you're at school and you fail a chemistry test. And you just feel horrible. But you learn from that. You learn how to study better. You learn you needed more discipline, and you went on. And it was important to you at the time. But throughout the whole arc of your existence and your learning experience, it really was unimportant. That failure just created the next step for success. So, what am I trying to say? Be prepared, for we may be guided into situations where we fail, but we fail for a reason. We may gain valuable insights into what we did wrong and learn to better analyze our intended actions. After all, when you're planning for the future or for the education of your child, you fully realize the benefit for failure. For only failure teaches one to understand that careful planning, dedication, and resilience is required for success. And even then, the victory can be close run. If all we did was travel from one success to success, we would be derailed by the first defeat. So, this is all part of guiding humans on Earth. And what I'm trying to say is life isn't meant to be easy, safe, or overwhelmingly pleasant. Life is supposed to be a challenge in which either victory or defeat is useful. For whatever occurs, all that is important is that we learn from it. If there's anything we're taking away from tonight, is whatever happens, just let us learn. And we should take away that primary lesson that if we follow our conscience, that compass that always points to the higher path, that whatever the outcome, failure or victory in our own mind, we emerge a better person. We may emerge poor, less respected by many, considered a fool by society, and insults hurled at us. But all that doesn't matter, for we follow the road to the light. Your conscience is always the answer sheet to any scenario. Resist the urge to rationalize away the right thing to do and follow your superior instinct, and you shall be guaranteed success. And believe me, I know that because I spent most of my life rationalizing why I should do something, even though I knew it was the not right thing to do. And it may not be apparent in your current life, but it will prepare you upwards in your real life, your life as an immortal spirit. And I'm telling you this because this whole section from book 3, How We Are Guided by Spirits, is going to reveal all of this. And I'm trying to give you understand is that when they are guiding us, it's not guiding us that, oh, we're going to make your life pleasant and great the whole time. We are being guided because we need to remove the blemishes in our character and become superior beings, right? What's the goal? What's told in Allan Kardec? What's the goal of every spirit in the Spirit's book? Is become a pure spirit. You don't become a pure spirit. You don't become trained. You don't become a professional by no study, no discipline. So, accepting our lessons and letting our conscience guide us makes the job of our guardian angel and spirit mentors easier and a joy. Who doesn't love having a pupil try their best through thick and thin, always trying to maintain a good attitude? In fact, as recorded by many messages from spirits to spiritist mediums, the more willing and dedicated the student, the more assistance will be given. Planned trials in your present life will be modified to make them less drastic, and your future lives will concentrate on learning experiences instead of payment for wrongs in which you have not yet learned the desired lessons. Angels guide us out of love, and giving them any excuse to increase that love without denying you a valuable lesson is a joy to them. Hence, an episode that may have been planned as extremely dramatic may be scaled back because your attitude has changed and you are modifying your character along the right lines. Our guardian spirits are always there for us. We may not notice their presence, but they are next to us. Whether physically beside us or billions of miles away, they are constantly connected. They are the source of the whispers in our heads to do the right thing or to think once more before making a certain decision. Learn to discern the subtle messages coming from your guardian or your conscience. Ponder carefully the long-term ramifications of each of your actions. Look for signs that the spirit world is guiding you in a specific direction. When you embark upon a task and seemingly everything falls into place, this usually means that your path was the correct one. Or when you are searching for an answer and out of the blue, let's say your uncle calls you with a suggestion or a contact of a person who could help, most likely that isn't random, but synchronicity, a planned series of events orchestrated by the spirit world to assist in your endeavor. The more you look, the more evidence you will find that you and all others around you are guided by bright and loving spirits. So, now, what has been told about this? So let's get into some of the very interesting messages to the Reverend G. Vale Owen. And let's talk about the value of sorrow. Now, this is tough because we don't like hard trials, right? It's not easy. And what the spirit world tells us is sorrow has a value. It helps change our path. And many of us consider sorrow to be the opposite of joy. The spirit world knows better. They believe sorrow gives us the space and time to analyze ourselves and others. we think again about our attitudes and beliefs and discover better paths in our lives. In Reverend G. Owen's book, The Life Beyond the Veil, is a revealing passage about sorrow, what it is and what it is used for. And this is in book 1, The Lowlands of Heaven. And of course, I have all of this, is what I'm talking about right here is how we are guided by spirits. This is, I think this is important for all of us to learn, because we can become more sensitive to how we're being subtly guided this way and that way. So Vale Owen's mother writes him from the other side about the passage in the Bible when Jesus tells Peter that he is an adversary to him. And this event is in the context of Jesus preparing the apostles for his death in Jerusalem. According to Vale Owen's mother, Jesus wished to deliver the message to his disciples that his imminent death would not be a failure, but the start of a grand design. And from his death, a sequence of events which would unfold, which would change the world forever. And then Vale Owen's mother explained further. This is what she says. Peter, by his attitude, showed that he did not understand this, which is all plain and easy enough so far to understand. But what is unusually lost sight of is the fact that the Christ was pursuing one straight line of progress, and that his death was but an incident on the way of his hot onward path, and that sorrow, as the world understands it, is not the antithesis of joy, but may be a part of it, because if rightfully used, it becomes the fulcrum on which the lever may rest, which may lift a weight off the heart of the one who understands that all is part of God's plan for our good. It is only by knowing the real value of sorrow that we understand how limited it is in effect, so far as making us unhappy goes. So what is she saying? That sorrow isn't a state of complete despondence, but it is a gateway to open our hearts and mind to this true state of our life. The feeling of sadness enables the lifting of the veil of self-deception in which we had been living and forces our vision to gaze on the light of the truths that we may have been consciously avoiding by letting our emotions and prejudices rule our conscience. During our trials here on earth, we have all experienced sorrow. The events which brought us down to misery are often meant as a signal to change direction. So think about that. A sign that our accumulated decisions made so far are not entirely correct and should be modified. An example of this is when family members are estranged from each other. And when one of the groups suddenly dies, the survivors realize that through their abject grief, the pettiness of past arguments, and reconcile. Thusly, sorrow serves to awaken our priorities and place in perspective the trivial grudges and plans for revenge we all, at one time or another, hold against those who dared to slight us. Vale Owen's mother, who's now part of the loving legion of spirits who help guide our small destinies, discusses how sorrow could be used by the spirit realm to subtly maneuver us onto the right path. And this is what she says. And now, this is something we all need to internalize and think about. So listen to what I'm reading here. So, for the problem, which is the chief study of the new house in which I spend much of my time, is this same subject. So let me just stop for a second here. She is from one of the lower levels of heaven and talking. She was the first spirit to talk to her son, G. Vale Owen, the Reverend G. Vale Owen. So carry on. So therefore, she was studying in a house, which is they're trying to learn how to guide us here on earth. So, which I spend so much of my time is this same subject, namely turning or converting the vibrations of sorrow into the vibrations which produce joy in the human heart. It is a very beautiful study, but many perplexities enter into it because of the restrictions imposed on us by the sacredness of free will. We may not override the will of any, but have so to work through their wills as to produce the desired effect, and yet leave them free all the time, and so deserving in a way, and in a measure at least, of the blessing received. Now, this is what's great about Spiritist books. There are, that's why I have to read and reread and reread them, because there's sometimes you read it once and you learn something, but then you read it again and it gives you another whole view. And nothing that the spirits write, especially through Spiritist mediums, is probably It's always there for a reason, and you really need to parse every word. And that paragraph above says so many things about the spirit world on so many levels. First, the amount of study and effort that is spent on our part. We who are sent here to learn, completely unaware of the army of good spirits who care for us and attempt to illuminate the right path, are the objects of love so complete as to warrant such exertion and determination on our behalf. Secondly, the set of rules in which our life is a predetermined set of events, but which in our choices are completely our own. Like children whose every decision is usually the wrong one, our spirit benefactors must observe us stumble upon the earth in a seemingly chaotic dance of wrong-headedness. Only pure love could possibly explain the dedication to our cause. At the end of the day, when sorrow crashes upon us like a giant wave, remember to use it as a tool, a device to rethink and analyze and to put inside the deepest regions of your heart what is important and what is not. Let your conscience, that gift from God, which is the set of divine rules which is implanted into each of us, fashion your thoughts and your plan to move forward. Now, let's carry on. There's more of what was exposed and presented to the Reverend G. Vale Owen. And now the next thing is what they tell us. So we can understand our own life on earth and understand our, are we different from the spirit world? How's this, what does the spirit world look like? But what we are told is that life on earth is an extension of life in the spirit world. And again, Vale Owen's mother tells him some core truth. This is what she says. How would you explain to one who had little idea of a spirit world about him the truth of survival beyond the grave and the reality of this life and all of its love and beauty? First, you would endeavor to bring home to him the fact of his present existence as an immortal being. And then, when he had really grasped the significance of that as it affects his future, he would perhaps be open to a few words of descriptions as to that life which he will find himself possessed of and in touch with when he puts aside the veil and emerges into the greater light of the beyond. So what was she trying to say? She's trying to explain the continuity of life from the other side to the physical life and back to the other side again. This is what we must all keep in mind. We aren't here for one grand life full of mixtures of misery, contentment, grand passion, mistakes, honorable and dishonorable deeds, and then off to a life of leisure as a spirit, listening to heart music. The life you are living now is an extension of your life in the spirit world. You came here for a purpose, to rectify what you had lacked before, to repair defects and build for the future. G. Vale Owen's mother warns us that we should take our time here industrially. This is what he says. Oh, it's what she says, I should say. Now, it is no small matter that men should so live their lives on earth that when they step over the threshold into the larger, freer spheres, they should take up and continue their service in the kingdom without a more or less protracted hiatus in their progress. We have seen the effect of so many as it is viewed in extension into this land, that we feel we cannot too much emphasize the importance of preparation and self-training while opportunity offers. For so many do put off the serious consideration of this with the idea of starting fresh here. And when they come over, they find they had very little realize what that starting afresh really implied. So what is she saying? In other words, she says that upon death, we don't start afresh. We don't start new. We merely complete one stage as if it's finishing a degree at a college and return to start exercising what we have learned. Imagine the embarrassment when you return and find out you have accumulated very little knowledge and didn't follow the course you laid out before you started the journey. I personally have been told I have done that many, many times. During a meetings meeting, I've been told that I have failed many times, many times, unfortunately, is what it says, in my previous life, that I did not do what I had promised to do. Very disappointing, is it not? So what I'm trying to do is help everyone not have the same horrible deed that I did, and that is try and do the best that you can. Try and balance materialism and spiritualism. Try and balance that predilection, the selfishness, I'm sure many of you don't have it. I probably had more than most people, is, try to stop that and try to do what you know is right and follow your conscience. So half the battle is to recognize that we are on earth to learn and to improve, not to gather as much material goods as possible, right? But that's the culture, right? You're on earth to get as many toys and have as much fun and be hedonistic as possible. That's not really our goal here on earth. Sad to say for some of us, right? It's really here to raise our character, our spirituality, our love for our fellow humans up a notch. And knowing this puts the rest of life into perspective. So it's like as when you send children off to school, the spirit world doesn't lose interest into what happens to us, right? The spirituality, the supreme intelligence, God, knows our plan and measures our progress and alerts us to our guardian angels when we veer off in the wrong direction. And again, I talk about this in not only the book I'm talking about now, but also my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, how they affect your daily life. It's Spiritism. The more you understand Spiritism, the more you understand exactly where you are, why you are, what you are, and what your goal and purpose is in this life. Because you can analyze what's happening to you now. Because remember, we are all on a course, right? We weren't put on earth to, okay, now just, you have free will, right? Because we talk about free will. Just do whatever you want to. No. We were put on earth, and our free will is quite limited, actually. And as you go higher and higher in different planets, I believe our free will is much grander. In fact, that was told us by the spirit Diogenes from a superior planet. He said, no, you here on earth, you're more like slaves. And because, you just have to do what you have to do. Now, but we still have free will because we can make choices through these episodes. Now, I know that many of us think, predetermination, predestination, how can that be? It just shows you, and there's more in this book about how everything is planned out. I did not believe in predetermination at all, right? I thought, my life was my own choices. I did whatever I wanted to. If I made mistakes, that was me, my job, I got my job, etc. Just through happenstance or my own working, my own ability to interview well, right? Have the right skill set. That's all part of it, right? We all have to try, but you're really showing what you need to do. Now, why do I think that? Because when I got married to my wife, and she was like 32 or whatever, when she was like 17 or 18, I forgot her age, she had a near-death experience, and she saw the future. And then when we were first married, she'd tell me, oh, yeah, I remember that was going to happen. And of course, I thought, oh, yeah, sure, right, whatever. I didn't listen. But then when we were buying our house, we looked through house after house, right? We just went all around where we were living and looking for houses. Finally, we saw a house we liked, something that we could afford. It was modest. And I called them. I said, I want to put a bid on this house. And they go, well, you know what? There's 2 people bidding in front of you. I said, well, put it in, and I put it at the price that they listed, not more. The house market wasn't, on fire at that point in time. And I got a call back, say, well, both bidders fell out. You got the house. And then my wife said, oh, yeah. I knew we were going to get that house. I go, why? He goes, because it has 3 trees in front. And so we drove there to see the house we got. And I looked at it and I said, look, honey, it has 4 trees in front. You're wrong. We bought the house. We moved in the house. A month later, a big windstorm came through and one of the trees blew down. And I thought, And then I just forgot about it. Then later, months later, years later, I still had not believed this, right? I still had not gotten the Spiritism. This shows you what an ignorant fool I am, right? During the Great Recession, right? I think it was 2006, 2007. The whole housing market started getting jitters, right? And I worked for a bank, and I said, honey, market's a little bit jittery, but we've been told by our senior management that we're fine. We are a very strong bank. There's nothing going to happen to us. And this is like in January, in January of the year, and then when everything just went down, the market just died. I think it was like September or October. And she goes, "Oh yes, I remember." And she goes, "You are going to work for a bank that will go broke, but don't worry, the same bank with a different name is going to hire you back." I didn't believe her at all. So how could the 17-year-old from Brazil, my wife's Brazilian, right, know that? There wasn't one of those things like, "Oh, you're going to marry a guy from, overseas," right? Those type of things. No, this was specific. This was, like that, like the three trees. This was, this is possible to be random, but extremely improbable. Well, to make a long story short, the bank I worked for went broke. I went through and I applied to everybody. It was the most horrible time in the world. Not the most horrible time in the world, but for me it was, in my life, to try and find a job, right? There's no jobs. Everything just stopped. And she goes, "Oh, don't worry. They're going to hire you back." Well, I was out of work. I can't remember how long, 3 months, 4 months. And they hired me back. The same bank, but with a different name. That is what opened my eyes, that we live a predetermined lesson. Now, every one of us will have our own way of doing it. And this is why we need to sit and we need to meditate and we need to communicate, if possible, right, in our own way with spirits. And in fact, in the book, there's an interesting passage in the book, Life Beyond the Veil, is how to facilitate your communication with spirits. And what they said, and the mother was saying, is when you're meditating all the times, is you kind of put your elbow on the table and put your hand like this or like this, right? And place your hand against your head. And she says that you'll notice that we're able to more readily speak to you, so you will be able to understand. And it's interesting because I saw pictures of Chico, where he's always kind of like, with his hand on his head, like resting like this, and he's writing. And Reverend Vale Owen says, "Well, how does that help?" He goes, "Well, there's a stream of magnetism proceeding from us to you, and by doing so, it doesn't dissipate so quickly." And of course, he says, "I don't understand a word of this." And she goes, "Well, there's many things you yet to learn, but it's one of those little things." So it's interesting because, we're told in Spiritism that thoughts go out, they radiate from us. And it must be our thoughts are caught in some sort of loop that helps to serve, to capture those and then recirculate them so they can get into our minds. Anyway, I thought I'd just add that as I was talking about trying to reach out and communicate. And as you meditate is, try that and see if communications for you become clear. And the reason I thought it was interesting because when I said before, I saw pictures of Chico doing that. I said, "Oh, and this is, of course, this book and everything from this that Vale Owen did was in the early 1900s, and Chico didn't. Chico was born. When was he born? 1910. I can't. I'm probably off on that. But he didn't start writing his books till the 1930s. And he tried to get more and more popular 40s, 50s. So, very interesting. So this was done even before Chico, was cognizant of any of this. He was, he was just a child at the time when this came out in the 1916s, 17s, or 18s. So now, as I'm saying this, then let's go on and talk more about the communications with the spirit world and how they guide us. Now, this has been talked about in other books, by Chico Xavier. Of course, I really encourage everyone to read his book, especially the Andre Luis series of books. No Solar is the first of them. I really think everybody should read that whole series of books. It's so enlightening. It's so exciting. And in fact, there's a movie, Nosso, Nosso, Lar, Lar. You can get, I think you can rent it on YouTube for $3.99. You might have to look up, and it's in English, it's Astral City or Celestial City. It's well worth every penny. So, keeping on the same theme of how we are guided, right? How we are guided on earth. Let's talk about prayer. So prayer is not merely asking for something. The spirit realm really analyzes our requests. And our prayers receive more attention than many of us believe. One of the recurring themes in Spiritist literature is the care and consideration of our prayers. We are listened to in the spirit world, no matter how small or inconsiderable we think ourselves to be. Our requests are analyzed. And the importance of prayer for ourselves and how the spirit world reacts to our devotion is discussed in the books I was talking about. And it was a communication to the Reverend G. Vale Owen from Astral in the spirit world that touches upon the power of prayer and meditation. This is what the Spirit Astral says. Prayer is not merely the asking for something you wish to attain. It is much more than that. And because it is so, it should receive more careful consideration than it has yet received. What you have to do in order to make a prayer a power is to cast aside the temporal and fix your mind and spirit on the eternal. When you do that, you find that many items you would have included in your prayer drop out from the very incongruity of their presence. And the greater and wider issues become to you the focus of your creative powers. For prayer is really creative as the exercise of the will, as seen in our Lord's miracles, such as feeding of the 5,000. And when prayer is offered with this conviction, then the object is created and the prayer is answered. That is, the objective answers to the subjective in such a way that an actual creation has taken place. Again, this is one of the excitement of reading things, because you read this and you go, the objective answers the subjective? What does that mean? Well, there are several concepts presented in the above that are what I just said that are not normally associated with prayer. First is the aspect of thinking about the eternal. Since we are here on earth to learn to be more loving and spiritual, praying for superfluous material possessions will get all the attention it deserves, which is to say, very little. I want to be rich, right? Oh, please, please make me rich. That's nothing. That's just a temporary thing. Believe me, at one point in one of your lives, you'll be rich because, as Spiritism, and it actually says in the Spirits book, I forgot what question it is. They say, what are the hardest trials? Well, one of the hardest trials is to be rich. You'll get that. And believe me, it's not easy. So what they're saying is desiring to be given strength to successfully end a trial with newfound knowledge. That, as an example, is an imperishable attribute we would take with us for life after life. Think about what we have, what we take with us when we pass on, right? We're not going to take with us that new house. We're not going to take with us that bank account, right? The only thing we're taking on is our spirit, right? Our flesh is gone. What are we're taking with us our improved character, our improved personality, our improved capacity to love, be charitable, and be honest. So praying for enlightenment, such as a solution to a problem or for the benefit of others, will always receive due consideration. This type of request, which illustrates a desire for spiritual or intellectual self-advancement, is a sign to the spirit world that one is serious about their assignment on earth. Now, let's go to another concept, is that our thoughts are translated into action, right from the objective to the subjective. What we pray for, if it is worthy of an answer, is transformed into physical reality. So praying for help in finding shelter for your family so they may strive through their trials without the worry of homelessness could, for instance, cause a person to decide to rent out their house to the requesting family at a lower rate or with a smaller deposit or no last month's rent, right? All actions brought about by the manipulations of the spirit world on behalf of the person requesting divine assistance. In my example, isn't merely an intellectual exercise. I have known people in dire straits People who have selflessly helped others receive free housing, which comes out of the blue. A woman who was recovering from the aftermath of a near-death experience wasn't able to work. And I talked to her, wrote to her, talked to her on the phone. Yet she was still insistent in providing care for others, was given the opportunity to stay rent-free in a house. All she had to do was take care of a small part. These are not coincidences, but they are planned assistance from the spirit realm. And when we talked, and I told her that, she goes, "Oh, that makes total sense, right?" She did not get the connection. Then she did. So while on earth, we consider our thoughts to be perishable. Right? They think they're gone. First, we think gone. They're meaningless. As a kid, we think, our thoughts control things. Then we learn, no, it doesn't make any difference, right? But that's not true. Our thoughts radiate outward from us. Each thought is tagged with our personal identification and most probably a timestamp and a location, all sorts of things. And we know this by two sources. First, by what is told to us in spiritist literature, and secondly, accounts from near-death experiences. When people who have reported a life review during an NDE, they invariably describe the ability of the spirit world to recount their thoughts second by second and the feelings of others interacting with them. Nothing is lost or forgotten. So, we think about our privacy here. We go, oh, God, everybody knows everything. It's even worse. The truth is even worse than that. When you're a kid, say, oh, God watches everything you do. And it's even worse than what your parents did to try to, to make you worry to be, at least somewhat disciplined and good. It's, excuse me. Everything in our thoughts is recorded. And Spiritism tells us that in the domains of mediumship. We were told that by the Spirit Emmanuel in the preface to the main book was, of course, dictated to Chico Xavier by Andre Luis. But in the preface, Emmanuel talks about our thoughts are unique and they're tagged. So, and then the same thing is the Reverend G. Vale Owen told us. Yeah, everything is recorded. Everything is meant. And therefore, when people have NDEs, so you think about, well, how could these NDEs, how can they even know the thinking of other people, right? And near-death experiences, as people are saying, no, they don't mean anything. It's just, it's your mind going through stuff. But they know the thoughts of others. And other people said, yeah, that was my thought. That's what I did. How would they know that? They haven't been able to figure that out yet, but they will. They'll understand. When Spiritism becomes more throughout the world, people will understand what's happened. So the theme is pray for what's going to help you, help others to grow, to become better, to be protected so they can grow, right? Not momentarily luxuries or desires, but something that's going to affect you to help you remove blemishes, grow your character, grow your spirituality. That's the answer. Now, interestingly, what happens to a misguided prayer? Now that we've discussed what a prayer should be, what happens to those who have selfish prayers? Like the ones I used to make as a kid, right? I'd wish for a new bike, right? Or the most regular prayer I had was asking that our school be closed tomorrow. I was, I remember imagining, oh, if we just had that big earthquake, I wouldn't have to go to school, right? It's just typical selfishness of a child. So this is what we are told. If we have a misguided prayer, like I did when I was, smaller, or even probably even older, when I thought people stood in my way. This is what we were told. Then the project of the will glances off tangent, and the effect is only proportionate to the scattered rays by which the object is touched. Also, when the prayer is mixed with motives unworthy, it is proportionally weakened, and also meets with opposing or regulating wills on this side, as the case may require, and so the effect is not attained as desired. What did they say? In essence, if we pray for something selfishly, it is duly noted, but mostly ignored. When we pray for what we should not have, the answer may come back to us in another lesson. So be careful where you turn your attention, for your thoughts and desire may have unintended consequences. Let me give you an example of this. A woman recounted a near-death experience where she started off by asking God to make her happy. She had a good job and a wonderful husband. This wasn't enough for her. Her prayer was answered. She was in a terrible automobile accident where she was in intense pain, so bad that she could no longer work. It was the lowest moment of her life. So think about this. She says, God, I'm not happy. Make me happy. She had a good job. She had a wonderful husband, but it wasn't enough, right? She just didn't feel fulfilled. But then she was given this horrible situation. So now she was in this worse state, this pain. And then she yelled at God, she said, you made my life even worse. And again, her prayer was answered. So this is how it was answered. After taking her pain medication and going out to dinner, she became so drunk, right? She mixed two things. On her way home, she threw up in the car, and then insisting she could walk to the front door without the help of her husband, she fell and hit her head. So her husband drove her to the hospital. Then when she was recovering in the hospital, she felt a transformation. For the first time, she felt what others felt. Instead of being a standoffish person, patients and even the staff somehow gravitated to her to tell her their innermost thoughts. Her husband was astounded. She was a changed person. Her original prayers were truly answered. She became content with her life. She didn't miss the old job and the bountiful salary. She dedicated herself to helping others. But to come to this point involved pain and anguish and sorrow. It wasn't an easy road for her, but her prayer was answered. So how does the spirit world really analyze our prayers? So in the communication from the spirit astral to the Reverend G. Vale Owen, we are allowed to peek behind the curtains to discern the process by which prayers are analyzed. This is what astral says. For you must know there are appointed guardians of prayer here whose duty it is to analyze and sift prayers offered by those on earth and separate them into divisions and departments and pass them on to be examined by others and dealt with according to their merit and power. So doesn't that sound almost too earth-like, too much like how it would be done in a large corporation? These things come in and you give them to the right department. This is because as much as we would wish it to be otherwise, earth is a poor reflection of heaven. How people organize themselves, how work is done, and other mundane tasks we bring our inclinations from our sojourn during our spirit life to our incarnated lifespan. Hence, in heaven, as on earth, there are vast organizations and levels of management and separation of duties. But fear not, spirit bureaucracy is not like ours, uncaring, stiff, arrogant, and full of pompous managers. The vital point to be taken is the amount of care parceled out to every one of us. The spirituality is listening and responding. We just lack many times the sensitivity to recognize the effect it has on our life. It can be done by evaluating your life, the signals and synchronicities that have shaped your present. You can begin to reveal the marvelous ways in which you have been guided. There are some prayers which must be referred to in even higher authorities, prayers which are beyond the capability of certain levels of heaven to determine the best course of action. And Astral tells us what is done with desires which are undecipherable. This is what he says. These we pass on to those of higher grade to be dealt with in their greater wisdom. And do not think that these latter are always found among the prayers of the wise. They are frequently found in the prayers of children, whose petitions and sighs are as carefully considered here as those of nations. So hence, the requests of children struggling in dysfunctional families or other dire circumstances are carefully reviewed. The love of children is equal or even more profound in the spirit realm than it is here on earth. In heaven, without deep love, a soul can't enter, right? While earth is home to many levels of incarnate spirits, some have no love for anything or anyone but themselves, unfortunately. Finally, to dispel any doubt how prayers are analyzed and then acted upon, Astral gives us this example. This is what he says. Thy prayers and thine alms are come up for memorial before God. You will remember these words spoken by the angel to Cornelius. They are often passed over without being understood as the literal description of those prayers and alms as they appeared to that angel and were passed on, probably by himself and his fellow workers into the higher realms. It is as if he had said, your prayers and alms came before my own committee and were duly considered on their merits. We pass them on as worthy and have received notification from those officers above us that they are of exceptional merit and require a special treatment. Therefore, I have been commissioned to come to you. So Astro put in the words of the Old Testament, the Bible, put it almost into our management speak, right? Okay, yeah, we've got your prayers. Okay, yes. Yep, they're worthy. We'll give them on to the right department so they can be acted upon. And he goes on to say, we are trying to put the case as emphatically as we can in your language of official business in order to help you understand as much as you may be able of the conditions here obtaining. So how often do we hear, that's what he said, so how often do we hear that communication in the spirit world is wrapped in a parable, right? Or the meaning is difficult to comprehend. Astro just gave us an example of a straightforward message. Yeah, your prayers are analyzed. And if, at our level, we don't understand them, we put them up. And if they're worthy, we somehow act on them. It may not be what you intended. Now, if you give us a prayer that's selfish and mean, it may not be. We may ignore it, or it really may have unintended consequences. So, again, here's an example of just a straightforward, there's the process, right? We are being told the process of heaven, the process of the spirit world around us. It's amazing. This is what Spiritism brings to you. Spiritism brings to you this whole understanding, like, okay, we're on this earth, and we're on this campus, and the administrators of the campus have all these processes and procedures. I guess the more we understand it, the better we can do. That's exactly what Spiritism is telling us. The doctrine of Spiritism is there for us to learn the process and procedures, why we're here on earth, and how best to improve ourselves. And then it's up to us. They're not saying be better or you'll be damned, right? Or you'll go to hell or any of that type of stuff. No, they're telling us hey, we're laying this out for you. You have your free will. You can be as obstinate as you want, but we're going to tell you the consequences. And we'll tell you the consequences of you doing really well. That's what the doctrine of Spiritism brings. It's just telling you, it's laying it out. It's like telling your teenager, okay, you can make that decision, but you're not going to drive the car, right? Because it's proving you're irresponsible. Maybe when you're 25, you can drive the car, right? Here, the spirit world is telling us, okay, you can make that decision. You can be selfish and you can just try to take advantage of other people. But, your next life, you're still going to learn this lesson over again. And it may take several lives. And in between the lives, you may be on the umbral or maybe even below in the dark abyss, but that's your free will. We're not going to violate your free will. So Astro tells us that prayers prove that angels shed tears, right? They see and hear what is requested and their hearts cry out in pity and love. Astro asks us to remember that love and compassion are real objects in the spirit world, just as hate and greed are in the lower zone. We are told to take on a type of solid form, a recognizable pattern, which are the physical measurements of our progress and status on earth. Our prayers are important. They reflect us, and we should meditate and pray. And that is how we connect with the spirit realm. Because the more we can connect with the spirit realm, the more we can learn not to violate our conscience, the more we can say, yes, okay, because mostly any message from a higher spirit, people go to these different mediums and they'll, am I going to meet someone or, can I get rich or something like that? And the level of the medium communicates to that level of the spirit. So a higher spirit will never tell you to do something mean or evil or act in anywhere in a bad manner. And they most probably won't tell you where you left your keys or how to take advantage of a boyfriend or girlfriend, right? They will tell you, look, grow yourself spiritually, keep going on this path, right? Think about things. They will just be like a good teacher. They won't give you the answer, but hopefully they will give you hints of how to get the answer. And that's why meditation and prayer is so important, and to open yourself up so you can learn to, get these messages and act on them. And it's very subtle. And, and I don't think, probably just very superior people, unlike me, can really always ascertain that. You can get better with practice, and you can start learning to, to filter out these stupid ideas, right? Because we're always surrounded by spirits who are giving us immature ideas. And you can, if you start following your conscience, you can filter those out almost immediately. So that's a huge victory, which I know I never had before, right? Is filtering out really stupid ideas. At least I'm hoping I get there. I still let my emotions, my primitive emotions get the best of me many, many times, but I'm trying even to really not just control my mouth, but control my thoughts, right? Because that's really the end game, is learn to control your thoughts in every circumstance. So I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. This has been a really just a wonderful time talking to everyone. I just want to encourage everyone to please share this video, right? Share it on different Facebook sites. That would be great. The more we can share it. I know other people sharing other videos on Kardec, on the Kardec Radio face page, which is great. I like to see that. Please keep doing that. Tell everyone, come to nwspiritism.com. There's articles. I have a YouTube channel. Please go to that YouTube channel and subscribe. Every time I do this Facebook live streaming, I post it onto my YouTube channel, so you can always watch it later. You can fast forward the boring parts, listen to the parts you want to listen to. Plus, I have a lot of short 5, 6, 8-minute videos on different aspects of Spiritism. And so I'm hoping to make that so people could see that. So please take that, share that with people, spread the word of Spiritism. And Spiritism doesn't ask anything of anybody. We're just trying to lay the information on the table. I say, here it is. Okay, if you want to find out, please take it. And that's all we can do, is lay the information on the table, right? It's not our job to lord it over people and say, yeah, we're superior because we understand the spirit world. No, that's not how we work. We just say, we think this is of interest to you. This will help you. Anyway, I want to bless everybody tonight. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless everyone. I'll put the end credits on now.
I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in a direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.
Thank you, Greg.